So I'm just curious about, did you get that from Desikachar when you studied with him?
He was certainly presenting that. That wasn't what I got from him. I mean, I got that, but that wasn't the main learning that I was getting from him. The main learning that I was getting from him had to do with, I mean, I was 20 when I lived in Madras for a year. He was 34. You know what I mean? Like, he was like 34. He was just a little kid, you know, as it turns out. And, you know, like relatively new to teaching.
Excuse me for interrupting. He didn't even start. He didn't want to have anything. He was an engineer. Right?
Yeah.
He didn't want to have anything to do with this weird dad.
Yeah, right, yeah. So just sort of my story with him was, you know, I'd grown up here, gone to school, did exams, you know, school was, you know, being force-fed and then having to, you know, regurgitate the correct answer. When I was 18, I went to the Krishnamurti school in England, so I lived there for a year as a student. It was sort of like I was at, it's a high school, but I had already finished high school here. But I wrote them a letter and asked if I could come and be a student anyway. So I was like, I didn't need to take the exams. And that was really good for me because being able to go to classes without the threat of the exam, suddenly I just relaxed, learned better. It was interesting suddenly. Like I wasn't like, the filter of, you know, the exam at the end of the week wasn't there. Like I didn't care. Like everyone else was fretting. But I was there to meet Krishnamurti and to, you know, hang out with people that were into Krishnamurti's teachings, and the way to do that when I was 18 was to, you know, play the role of being a student. But I didn't have to take the exams. So like the learning that shifted my approach to how to learn. The next year, while I was there, I asked Krishnamurti. I told him that I wanted to learn yoga more seriously, and I asked him, you know, like who would he recommend? He recommended that I go study with Desikachar. And so I wrote him a letter, and he said, yes, come, and I went and lived there for a year. And you know, like I went in to have a class with him. It was all privates in those days, and sort of like this, and we're in the room, and we were talking, and he would say stuff like, well, you know, like, how do you like living in India? How do you like the food? How do you like living near the beach, you know? And I'm thinking, you know, my hour's nearly up. I came halfway around the planet to be here. You know, are we going to be doing yoga anytime soon? And then I realized that, wow, if I ask him a question about yoga, then he started talking about yoga. But he wasn't feeling compelled, like my high school teachers, to deliver the subject, you know, to teach. And again, that sort of like it warped my mind in a really cool way. And I realized that, wow, he's sort of like not going to be telling me anything unless I ask. Once I realized that, then I started coming to our private sessions with, you know, like hundreds of questions. And then suddenly, so like this was the big learning for me with him, was that, wow, our time together, the curriculum was based on what I wanted to needed to learn, rather than just being the passive receptive student. And I liked it because it made me come up with questions. He was willing to talk about anything. And one thing led to the next, and suddenly the year was over, and it was like a really fun experience. I met Iyengar soon after that, and his style was, totally opposite, where he's just like gushing with info, and I love that also. But I really like this thing of, sort of like encouraging the student to not just feed it to the students, to somehow know that. And so like his statement at the time anyway was like keep, I forget what it was exactly, but something about your back pocket, like keep your cards in your back pocket. Is there a phrase, something like that? It's like sort of like don't say everything you know. Sort of like hold back, wait for the student to ask, and then the question means that they're ready, and then you respond. And I find myself, playing back and forth between the two. Not feeling obliged to just constantly deliver. Sort of. And wanting to also. There's certain things that will help morph a mindset in a healthy way. If you say something, whatever the example would be, but like you can like mold people's interest levels in certain ways, but then hold back, and then they ask, and then you say, I don't know. So that's what I got from Desikachar.